It's Friday, January 19th, 2024. Welcome everybody to a very tranquil. I'm going to talk like Elmer Fudd for the rest of the show.
Twank. I could use a tranquilizer.
A very Twank podcast. Hold on, that's now the show title. A very Twank podcast. I hope that I better make sure it's not a slur or something. Hold on a minute. With the verbiage of today's youth, I have to check everything.
I was drinking something when you said that. I almost spit it out.
Oh wait a minute, Urban Dictionary. Oh, God. All right, I can't use that. Well, you know what?
Hold on.
Wait,
no,
yes,
now I'm curious. What does it mean?
A gay man who is both a twink and a skank. Twank. You know what? I'm fine with that. Based on my character in Baldur's Gate 3, that would not be an incorrect.
You know what?
Application
Hold on.
of the term.
There is an alternate definition to a twank.
Yeah, it's
twank.
It's also yeah.
Well, twank is a verb. I'm looking at the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
The twang of a guitar. I saw that too.
It is to sound with an abrupt twang.
Yeah.
Or to cause sound with an abrupt twang.
See, and some of this Urban Dictionary stuff has to be made up, because here's
here's
one.
Hey, hold on.
Hey,
hold on.
Sense.
All language is made up. We just agreed upon.
I know, but this feels like somebody put this in as a joke. Twank.
Yeah.
A twat that wanks to other twats. I'm a twank. That can't possibly be correct. I don't believe that's actually being used that way.
Does it make an abrupt twanging sound when you touch it?
I don't know.
Because if it does, then it's a twank.
Oh, here's another one. Twitter skank. Twank.
Yes. Yeah. Those are all words that if enough people agree on them, then they'll be in the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Yeah, I can believe that the first one, the twink and skank, I could see somebody saying that, because that's something I would do.
No, I could see somebody saying a lot of the other ones, but there's a difference between somebody and everybody.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Is it really in broad use, or three people saying it somewhere?
Yeah, and to be clear, this verb definition of twank in the dictionary is mostly an English
okay. Well, I'm
usage.
leaving it. It is going to be a very Twank podcast.
The Twank.
Yeah. So, but I was asked, I don't know if this will lead to anything, but I was asked to provide your Amazon author link to a fan of the show. So perhaps
a
book sale is in your future.
You know what?
Might happen.
I don't even look at this point. I probably have.
That's okay.
I probably have money in there, but it's such dollars and cents at this point.
Yeah.
I was wondering the other day why I even bother, and I was like, well, you know what? It goes back to that original. I read this guy's book that was kind of like a lifestyle philosophy book, and I remember in the book he said that he put his stuff on Amazon because of the way he saw it. Why not? He's like, you've got it. It's done. You don't want to go through the process of the publication hell. He's like, you might as well just put it there and leave it. It's like, otherwise it's just collecting dust in your hard drive. And
Look, I completely agree. That's why we have a Patreon. It's not making any money, but
yeah.
Why not? It doesn't cost anything.
No. You know what? I figure what will happen is essentially if something should happen to me where like I get like a terminal disease or something like that, I'll run out and do something truly awful in society, right? Right?
Sure.
And then what will happen is I'll be gunned down in the process. And then my book sales will go through the roof because everyone will wonder what the hell that crazy man was doing, and my wife will get all the money.
There you go.
It's a good idea, right?
Hey, it's an idea.
But I mean, that's what it is now at this point. Nobody reads your shit while you're live, and then something happens, or you go nuts and do something, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we read this person's books, and that says a lot about the psychology of this person that he would go and do that thing. So yeah, but at this point, not. It's just a compulsion at this point. To just do it. To just do it and enjoy it, and it's my creative outlet, which I should be doing fucking way more of late. But it's hard to find that art life balance, isn't it?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it certainly is for people. Well, I mean, any type of work.
It's easier when you make some money off of it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, it isn't. It isn't, because if it becomes something where, I mean,
you know what? Let me rephrase that.
A single income anything.
No. I know, but let me rephrase that. It's easier when you have an audience.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, because when I was writing in college, I was part of this forum I've talked about before, the Chatsubo. When I knew that there were people reading my work, that we were part of like a group, and there was a ton of people and we were all reading each other's work, I wrote like fucking crazy. I gave up sex to write. Do you know what kind of mindset you got to be in your 20s to give up sex to write? You know what I mean?
Mindset.
Yeah. So like, I loved writing. It was great. It was a wonderful consensus illusion. But now it's like, my wife doesn't read my shit. It's a terrible stereotype, isn't it? That whole thing where it's like, yeah, my wife's not impressed with my shit. Now I know why my wife isn't impressed with my shit, because she's an editor, so she can see all the mistakes, and she loves. She's come to be an action spy thriller fanatic. She loves mystery novels. She loves spy novels. She loves she really loves like gruesome military spy novels where there's a huge body count, which I adore that about her, but that's not what I'm writing.
I get it.
So, well, for whoever has gone and read my books, I hope you enjoy them. I hope they bring you entertainment. At the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for, is to entertain.
That's true.
And if, to entertain, and if you're lucky, give some interesting ideas about life, the universe, and everything. Yeah?
Sure.
So, yeah. But otherwise, no, I have no idea.
Oh, well,
I should
said, somebody happened to ask me, and I said, I absolutely have that link. And they had indicated that the link on the show page they couldn't find it, which,
yeah.
So I checked that. It does still work. So I just wanted to because I don't really ever check the links, but they do all work. I checked them today. So that is actually a natural segue back to our normal starting point, which is you can go to patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare to support the show through that platform. And all of the links on the show homepage as of this recording are currently working. So that is the PayPal link, the Patreon link, the Zazzle store link, the book link for Amazon, Lando's Amazon author page, my Linktree, and our YouTube channel. Those 6 little squares on the right are all working. The ones across the top, oh God. I mean, I think they're technically all still working, but some of these don't even exist anymore. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, they all do exist. Well, Twitter isn't called Twitter anymore, but it does exist. So no, all those links, because I thought I just read some podcast app just went under entirely. One that a lot of people really liked. And I don't think it's one you use, and I don't use it, but it really, man, there's a lot of stuff that's going under now because the tech bubble has not only burst, but it's become a black hole that is sucking down stuff that even people like. So
yeah,
I don't remember which podcast app it was, and some of the. Well, I mean, Spotify shuttered most of its podcasts. That's why I am glad that we never really became dependent on this for money, or advertising money, because if we had, it would be gone right now because it's all going away.
Dude, I haven't checked the Amazon publishing site in so long. I don't even know how to log in anymore.
Well, your thing is there, so I know it works.
Oh, I know the books are there, but I don't know how to. I don't even know how to find out what's going on with them.
I don't know why
There's no way to log in here.
Physical. I see why. I was like, why are there 2 versions of Break World? One, I think, is physical.
Yeah. I don't even know how to get in here.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, go on.
Your bio might be a little out of date though.
Oh, my bio is very out of date.
He resides on a mountain.
Yes, he used to reside in a mountain. He was very happy there.
Yeah. You look happy in your photo.
Yeah.
Your hair looks a lot darker also. But you can say the same.
Fuck you. Oh, fuck
you. Hey, listen. I'm not one to talk. I am rapidly approaching Kenny.
I told my
my
wife I was going to shave all the hair off the top of my head, and then just get like a long Shakespeare thing going.
Is she a fan of that?
No, she wasn't a fan.
No, my wife wasn't a fan of me shaving my head either. Even though I keep saying, I'm like, there is some kind of terminus on my skull, and once this thing, either that, or I'm going to look like Reggie from the Phantasm movies, which he does.
Oh, so she doesn't want you to shave your head.
No, she's not a fan.
No, yeah, my wife prefers me with a shaved head. I think I finally hit the point where my beard is a bit too much for her. I think she would love it if I just had like a goatee. Yeah. But my kids wouldn't know who I was if I didn't have a beard.
Yeah, probably.
I shaved it after we moved, and my daughter was like, "That looks wrong," so I just let it grow. But yeah, I'm at that point now where it's getting kind of old Viking.
Sure.
And
Looking
but
very,
you know what?
Rocky.
I'm okay as an old Viking.
No, it's not bad. It's not a bad look. Not many Vikings get to old age, so you know.
Actually, that's where you're wrong. I'm doing a whole lecture.
But I could be. I don't.
I'm doing a whole lecture now on the Vikings. I needed to get away from. I finished my American history course.
Actually, me. All right, don't actually me. That's like
no,
a thing.
But
you're not supposed to say actually to correct people anymore.
But I am. I'm doing a course. I'm doing a college course on Vikings.
No, it's the whole thing that you're not supposed to say actually. It makes you an asshole if you say actually. Which by the way, I sort of understand that.
Actually, I am an asshole, so it works perfectly.
Yeah.
But no, I'm doing a lecture on the Vikings, and I
hold on.
And it was
You're not a psychopath. You're not stupid. I am an asshole.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
So it is interesting because one of the first things it starts out with is the idea that the guys in the pointy hats with the horns and everything like that, they're like, that's totally wrong. Yes,
I did know that was largely massively
yes,
incorrect.
they were looters. Yes, they were robbers. Yes, they did a lot of raping and pillaging, but they were also apparently huge traders and explorers. And and he goes, and the guy doing the course is like, and just remember, he's like, there was a whole bunch of people back, in Norway who weren't Viking. Apparently, even the term Viking is like a verb. Like you basically went on a Viking or something like that.
Really?
And and essentially, like if you were just a Norwegian back at home farming or doing whatnot, you weren't Viking, But by the standards of today, we look and we go, oh, they were all Vikings. You're like, yeah, but if you were just some farmer in Norway, you have about as much in common with that stereotypical image of a Viking, So it's fascinating. I love being corrected on history. And I love getting the big picture and going, oh, fascinating, because I knew a lot about the Vikings through other histories, but now I'm reading this, or I'm listening to this thing that's completely focused on just their history and their kind of movement through it, and it is fascinating because the Vikings had run-ins with fucking everybody. Like they had run-ins with Genghis Khan, they had run-ins with the Romans, like they were always around, but because they lived in the frozen north, nobody wanted to fuck with them. You had to get up there. You know what I mean? And think about that. Like, that's fine today. The Nazis went into Scandinavia, but go back to like the Roman times. Romans don't want to go into Norway. That shit's cold.
I would imagine. I mean, that's also the thing that what do you call it?
Russia
thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why does nobody want to land
That's why you don't go into Russia, man.
Yeah, because the winter kicks in and you're fucked.
Yeah, because you better be ready for it, and nobody ever is.
No, and they think they are. Nope. They think they are.
Incorrect.
But they are incorrect.
I mean, well, I was going to say, who knows? I was going to say, at some point, somebody will likely succeed at that, but who knows? I mean, that could be 1,000 years from that, and countries might not exist anymore. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that's, completely permanent, but...
My sales dropped off in 2018. There you go.
Oh, no.
I logged in. Yeah.
Oh, well.
So everybody read my book, and
that was it.
And then
they waited for the sequel, and it never came. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, good. At least I know where this fucking account thing is now. I should probably.
At least you have the access to one of the accounts you need.
Yeah. Geez.
That refers to a pre-show discussion, everybody. So we won't go into that.
Oh my God! Fucking technology.
I will sum it all up into one simple thing: don't go eSIM unless you absolutely have to. I'll leave it at that. But I made an interesting discovery. Speaking of, well, I was going to say technology. It's not really accurate, but I don't know if you were aware of it. Okay, there are many people, many celebrities, I should say, who delve into music, most often to embarrassing, or at the very least, mediocre results.
You know what? Yeah. Since you've told me not to say actually, my brain being an asshole is just like, oh, I should just spout it out constantly now.
Sure. No, well, hey, you can.
But Jeremy Renner put out a CD.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, and most of it I didn't care. But there was actually one track on it that I was like, you know what? That's a fun song. I like that. I am okay. I don't have an issue with actors trying to do music. Most of it isn't great.
Yeah, but sometimes that's why I said most, not all.
Yeah, but sometimes they do put out like one or two tracks that you're like, actually, I do kind of like that because Scarlett Johansson, she has a thing for Tom Waits, right? Yeah. And so she put out an album of Tom Waits covers, and everything. And I read about it was that the producer really overproduced what it was. But I've heard her do like not folk, what do you call it? Acoustic covers of Tom Waits. Okay. I gotta tell you, listening to Scarlett Johansson sing Tom Waits music is delightful. Oh. It is. I love Tom Waits. I love his music, and having it come out of her because she's got kind of like a warm, husky voice. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. So that was nice.
I am a longtime fan of Mila Jovovich's music, which is not for
everyone, you know what?
That's why it's not
I do
everybody.
Like her music. I forgot. I always forgot about that.
It's very weird.
I do. Yeah. It is very weird, but it's nice.
But most of the time when celebrities dip their toes into this type of thing,
it can be bad, yeah.
It can be, like I said, mediocre to embarrassing. That's I would say that's probably 80 to 85% of modern celebrities doing this stuff. It seemed like there was less of a willingness to indulge in this nonsense in the older times. You didn't see as much of it. When you saw it was,
I don't know about that.
Effective.
You had actors that were multi-skilled, and it wasn't weird to have them sing in movies. But they usually were
actually multi-skilled, is what I'm getting at. For a while there was almost okay, if you can't do it, we're not going to let you do it. Now, because of the way everything is, there's less impulse for many people to say no to things that they maybe should. Is all I'm saying. Not always.
Yeah.
So when I've been playing through Cyberpunk 2077.
God. Right? I did not expect that to lead to that. Okay.
I know, well, yeah, I know. It's a weird detour. But so there's radio stations in it. And most of them I don't, in fact, all but one I don't care for.
I actually enjoy a bit of the music from that game.
Well, there's selected tracks, but I don't leave most of the stations on because most of what's on I don't like. So, or, it's just not for me. So I ended up gravitating towards one particular radio station that just has a DJ set that runs. And I didn't think twice about the fact of who might have actually made it. But I just realized I liked it. And at one point I was drawing, and I was like, I'm going to put that Cyberpunk DJ set on. Because anything that's in a game now you can find on YouTube. So I figured, all right, somebody's got it. Yeah. And I pull it up, and the DJ is Idris Elba. And
because he did one of the expansions.
Well, yeah, and I think they added this when the but see, I bought it with the complete edition, which is what I always tell people, and I go by my words. I didn't buy it until it was out as one edition on sale.
Isn't Idris Elba like an amateur DJ?
Well, this not amateur. He's really good. I've listened to several of his sets now, and some of them are a little heavy on the vocals, which is just my particular hang-up. I don't like a lot of wordiness in my trance music, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Or my house music, whatever he's defined as. I don't know that those terms even mean what they meant in the 90s. I'm way out of the touch on that stuff.
Who knows what they mean anymore?
Yeah. I mean, the last time I was
we argued over what Twank meant.
Right. But the last time I was actually tuned into DJ culture was back when Global Underground was new. So I've been out of it for a while. In any event, I've pulled up several of his because he's been doing it since at least 2016 where he was doing serious stuff. So he's been doing it for a while now.
So is this like Paul Oakenfold type stuff?
Yes, it's very much that. And the Cyberpunk set, I would recommend, even if you don't listen to anything else of his, that one is flat excellent. Because I was a fan of it before anyway.
I wonder where the hell I would find that.
YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Oh, good. Well,
the whole thing is on. Most of his sets are on YouTube.
Good.
I would also recommend his Miami one from 2018. It's the one where he's in front of a bunch of TVs. I don't know if it has a name, but that one's very good. I was listening to that one last night. But several of them are really good. And even the ones I don't really like them because I don't like that type of music. Not that the music's bad, but there's way too much.
Is this the 99.9 Impulse FM
That's
radio?
It, Impulse FM. Yeah. Yes. It's great. It's great.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Yes.
I've been listening to do you know an artist named? It's two guys named Polaroid.
I've heard of them. I have not heard.
But the O is not normal. It's the
It's the what's the word for those?
I forgot what it's called.
There's a word for that thing.
Yeah, it's the O with the little slash through it.
Yeah, it's got a neat name. Polaroid. Yeah, what is the name for that type of letter?
Yeah, but otherwise, I just type in Polaroid. It's P-O. It's P weird O, but you can just use normal O as well. Laroit, and they have a really good set on YouTube. I have their albums as well, but they have a really good set on YouTube that I put on all the time while I'm cooking. It's like an hour long. They're on like a top of a ski mountain just jamming out, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful music, and it's one of those things. It's nice because it weaves its way in and out of your consciousness while you're doing other things. It's there if you want it to be, but it's not overwhelming.
Okay, it is a Scandinavian letter. It doesn't have a name? Oh, interesting. I thought this one had a name. No, it's just O with a slash. The name of this letter is the same as the sound it represents.
Which is?
Among English-speaking typographers, the symbol may be called a slashed O or O with stroke.
So how do you stroke an O?
Let's see usage. Here's usage. How do you say it? How do you... Phonetic transcription. Oh, how do you say it? Oh, they don't have a little link to a thing that says how you say it? I would try.
Oh, I'm sure there's sites. Hold on one second.
Let's see. Oh, Norwegian alphabet. How to pronounce the letter O/. Here we go. Hold on. Oh, God, there's a YouTube ad. Oh, God. Mute. Stupid ad. At least it's skippable. I'll give it that credit. Okay, skip. Here, let's see. Hold on, listening. The sound. I think it's just This guy is clearly a native, so I'm listening. Oh, well, if you speak German or French, you're at an advantage. Well, I'm not. Okay. Oh, wait. Hold on. Bleu is So it's like bleu.
It is pronounced similar to the I in girl or the English in turn.
Yeah.
It's Polaroid is how you'd pronounce it.
Okay.
So either way, if you just type in Polaroid, Polaroit, you can find them, and they're actually quite good. I enjoy them quite a bit. So, but I am looking forward to listening to this. Impulse FM thing.
And I would say, like I said, his other one is. Hold on a minute. I want to get the other one so people can listen to that one too.
Because I still listen to songs I picked up from the Grand Theft Auto 4 soundtrack.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I do too. Live from. Oh, I'm sorry. This is 2023. Oh, that explains it because this one is his newer stuff. I think is much better. Jesus, I just blew my ears out with that. Incredible. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not it. He did do one in 2023. Where's the one with the damn TVs? I thought it was Miami. Hold on. Yeah, but, like I said, if I had seen that he did DJ set stuff, I would never have listened to it. The fact that I heard this organically first.
Yeah.
That's what made I'm sorry, Amsterdam. Live from Amsterdam. It's from 3 years ago. Would be 2021. Yeah. So that one I would say listen to as well. It's very, very good. But most of his stuff is good. Like I said, some of it just dips into areas that aren't necessarily my version of this music. But and if you read around, multiple people say, no, he's actually very good. And I would agree with that. He is very, very good. So just a funny thing because the only reason I knew about it was from a video game, which, no, I agree. The main reason I ever got into synthwave in general is because of a game I never even played, which was Hotline Miami. I never played it, but I listened to the soundtrack, and I thought it was really good. That's the only reason I knew what that... I mean, I probably would have stumbled into it eventually somehow, but it really got me into it quick. So, yeah, it's funny how you discover things because
it's fantastically weird how you discover things.
It is because it's the only radio station in the game that I listen to, or I just turn it off.
Like I said,
is visually beautiful. I don't know about the story yet.
You just wish they did more with the story.
It's not that. I don't. Well, I guess technically yes, because I don't know that there's much of a story to it. It seems very. I don't want to say. No, I shouldn't say it's bad. Listen, compared to some stuff.
You know what?
I would say right now nothing is impressing me about it, but it's not letting me down either. I'm having more fun with the side stories, which are very, very interesting, and a lot of people have said that too. Like I'm doing one now where you're tracking down what are called cyber psychos.
Yeah.
And there's I think she's supposed to be a police officer, I'm pretty sure, asks you to track these people down and not kill them. Which is fascinating because this game treats guns in a weird way, which I still have not wrapped my head around. This is one odd part. Anybody, because I know a lot of people who listen have played this game already. Explain to me how these guns are non-lethal when they are clearly lethal sometimes. Because I use a sniper rifle almost exclusively. Only if I run into the people who can move really fast, then I have to go to a handgun or a shotgun. But that's rare. Normally, I'm about 3 miles out, and I'm basically dropping, rods from God on them from orbit, and it's fine.
Rods from God. Oh, that's
isn't
beautiful.
That great? I love that. I love that weapon system. That's a real weapon system, right?
In the game?
No, in real life.
Rods from God?
That was an initiative. If you look it up, kinetic bombardment is the name of the actual. The words of this are so good that you should know what this is.
A hypersonic space weapon concept, nicknamed Rods from God, which was first dreamed up during the Cold War, might not be as effective as previously thought, according to a new study. The idea for the hypersonic tungsten rod weapon involves dropping a large tungsten rod from a satellite or other spacecraft in orbit.
I am delighted that you did not know about this, because you usually know about so much stuff with warfare that I don't.
God.
Yeah, this is real.
I mean, is the concept?
It's
I know
beautiful.
The concept. No, I know about the concept.
You didn't know it was called Rods from God?
But the fact that somebody tried to develop into something that was nicknamed Rods from God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, the actual name for it, it was also called Project Thor, which is great.
Oh, Jesus. No, Rods from God. I mean, that says it all right there, right?
Or it's pure name,
really,
kinetic bombardment is also
That's all you need. You drop a fucking piece of tungsten trash from space. The only problem with it is, how do you pinpoint that?
Well,
I mean, that's
probably why it didn't.
You need to Claymore mine an area and hope that you get it right.
I suspect that there were multiple logistical problems with deploying this weapon system. But
have you read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress?
No, it's on my miles.
Oh man, that should be.
I know.
Yeah, because at one point in that book, they are essentially they've got the computer system for their where they're on the moon, helping them fight Earth, right? And so they start essentially launching. What were they throwing? I can't remember what it was, but they were essentially throwing like stones at data points on Earth, right?
Oh, so this was like the bugs in Starship Troopers when they were launching the asteroids?
Yeah. And the computer doesn't realize that what it's doing is basically dropping like these bombs on Earth, but all they're doing is just throwing rocks from the moon, and it picks up so much momentum. And think about that, right? If you threw a huge boulder from the moon at Earth, right? By the time it hit Earth with that velocity and force, it would be like a bomb. Now throw a whole bunch, and you've got a space-based lunar bombardment of Earth. So I think the thing that will drive you crazy in that book is that it's all written in kind of the phonetic language of the time period. That was tough.
I'd get over that.
I think you would enjoy the absurdity of that book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to read House of Leaves, so I could put up with a lot of it. I shouldn't say it like I'm not liking it, but
God.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So anyway, in Cyberpunk, the cyber psychos, but the guns was my specific question to people who finish this game. These are not. There are non-lethal attachments to the guns, mods that you can make a gun non-lethal. That is a thing in the game, which I never use, but I never use them. And so sometimes you'll shoot people, and their heads will literally detonate off their bodies, And then other times with the same gun, firing the same way, they'll just fall down and they'll be in pain. And I do not understand. I've not figured out what makes the difference in any event. And that's just normal enemies. So the cyber psychos, when you go after them, every time she asks you to keep them alive. And I thought, oh no, how am I going to do this? And I tried to read, okay, is this a thing where you have to get them within an inch of their life and then do a non-lethal takedown or what? And then I read, oh no, you just shoot them until their life depletes and just don't shoot them after they hit the ground. So I went, that can't be right.
So you just mostly kill them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I'm pumping high caliber rounds into these people's faces. I almost exclusively do headshots because it's the easiest way to knock them down.
Yeah, but they're cyber people, man. It's different.
Yeah, but some of them are just humans that have, good arm muscles. But that's a secondary thing. So again, anybody who plays the game, explain to me how the fatality, non-fatality thing works with guns, because I can't figure it out. But that's the secondary question or secondary thing. So when you go after them, they all inevitably have really tragic backstories. And what's interesting is, and this is getting a little bit political, so, whatever, that the cop in the game is specifically saying no matter how much mayhem they're wrecking, which in some cases they have murdered 10 or 20 people, do not kill them. Try not to kill them, which I'm like, wow, that's an interesting attitude from a police officer in the future. Is don't use lethal force. Try not to. Now, I've never killed one of them, so I don't know what happens if you do. I imagine you still get paid, and she's just disappointed or whatever. But so far, I haven't killed any of them because it's pretty easy. They fall down. You just don't shoot them again. But they all, part of it is you have to collect the evidence on why they went crazy. And almost every one of them is actually a very empathetic story. Like one is a guy who, and also I think this is supposed to be mirroring real world stuff. Of course, this is the typical thing with sci-fi. Like the one guy was he bought an auto dealership or an auto repair shop. And what he didn't realize was the terms of the deal didn't include the equipment. And I think the equipment was on a loan shark thing from a local gang. They collected. He went to the cops. They said, nope, your legality only says that you own the shop. The tools, you got to return them or they're going to kill your wife or something. And so he was like, oh yeah. And he set up a whole bunch of mines all over the place and people were getting killed trying to come and get their cars repaired because he's just lost his mind. And there's lots of that. And that's far more interesting than the main story of Keanu Reeves was a guitar rock terrorist who is a dick. That's okay, because I'm now getting more of the fact that I went, because at first I'm like, why would he want to do this role? This role just doesn't seem very fun. He's just playing an asshole. But now I'm kind of getting it where he's playing a interesting version of a a megalomaniac, egocentric guy. He's not quite as much of an asshole as he was. He still is. In fact, at times he's outright very manipulative in how he's telling you to talk to other people. But I also like that your character kind of hates him. So it's okay. It's not like your character, or the person you're playing is suddenly like, wow, you're Johnny Silverhand. You're the coolest guy in town. He's like, fuck you, man. You just want to use me until you kill me. Because you find out you're going to die. And I assume that's permanent. From what I've read, this is not a game that has a happy ending. So I assume I will die. Because his biochip is in your brain and it's taking over because it's a defense mechanism. So they had frozen his memories and you were trying to
so he will kill you.
His personality will subsume yours. Yes. It will take over.
Oh, well, that's some shit.
It's interesting because from what I read, that's what happened, or at least that's what can happen. I think it has multiple endings. So, but I had read that, hey, this game is not a happy ending game. So unless there's certain conditions.
Well, the thing I was going to say to you about Cyberpunk is that if this is the greatest hits of Cyberpunk, right? They're using a lot of Cyberpunk. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, Cyberpunk, so much about Cyberpunk, the genre, was about today. Like you said, sci-fi is about today. It was shades of today, basically through the technological, like I even say the word, overly technological sort of vision of the future and how it might change the idea of today, right? So everything just gets lit up. The neon is more neon. The muscles are artificial and huge. The communication is more quick. I mean, they didn't even have the technology when Cyberpunk was conceived. They didn't even have the technology that we have today. By that standards, the technology we have today is on par with a lot of Cyberpunk stories. Not all, because they went the route of more nerve jacks and things like that. But I mean, we're getting pretty fucking weird here. So, but But if you strip away all the neon, you strip away the technology and kind of weird nuance, they are by and large crime stories. They are stories about people robbing, people murdering, people selling their bodies for money. In fact, I always thought that Snow Crash stood outside a little. It stands at the edge of sci-fi for me, or cyberpunk for me a little bit, because it's not just a heist. It's about somebody doing something almost more old school with the technology. You know what I mean? Like, it gets into all this old Sumerian
the oldest school of all, since it goes back to the original, the metavirus.
So, yeah, exactly. So that's the thing, is like I give it to Neil Stephenson that even his cyberpunk is still weirder than a lot of the other stuff. Whereas, like, with Gibson stuff, it's always a crime story. It's always a heist story. It's always a corporate being evil. You know what I mean? And then some extra technology gets thrown in there. Whereas, so it's never going to be kind of a happy ending. And that's classic cyberpunk. It's always a crime story of some kind with technology thrown in, and the technology makes it so that things are different, but the more different they are, the more they're the same. I mean, and even with Snow Crash is a hyper realized 80s.
Oh yes.
And we're
sci-fi
is always
just
now.
Finishing another read of that right now. I just got to the part where he's about to encounter Raven, so I'm at the very very end where he's just about to run into him in the reality.
Oh, where he's okay. Right.
One of my favorite thing about, wait, where'd you get those swords? Oh, I'll tell you where I got these swords. My father got the swords, I guess.
Yeah, I always loved that thing in Snow Crash where he meets Raven and he feels liberated by it, because he realizes that
he says there's freedom in not being the baddest motherfucker. When you met somebody and you could just be yourself.
So many times in your life you think, oh, if I moved to a monastery and I just focused on training and I did all this stuff and blah, 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 I could be like the ultimate badass. He's like, but I can't be the ultimate badass. Right. I've met the ultimate badass. I am now liberated from having that delusion. I love that.
Such a fucking great book. I am so, every time I know the great parts and they still land every time, and they're always
and in
the
that
same
respect
ones.
Neil Stephenson is kind of like your video game, because you're saying you don't really like the main story, but you like all the little things along the way. I find of late with Neil Stephenson that I'm not really so interested in his main story, but I love all the little weird stuff along the way.
Well, Snow Crash is probably one of the few exceptions where there's nothing in that book I don't like. There is
exactly,
nothing,
but like some of the other
nothing.
Ones that he did, because
yes, no, definitely. I know you're completely right about everything else. The only two books, well, I should say, there's one other book
like Cryptonomicon. I enjoy Cryptonomicon, but for me, what I love more about Cryptonomicon than the main story is just, like I said, all the weird. So there's the thing in there where he's talking about going to dinner parties with his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend, and how he turns it into this allusion to the Hobbit, and how he was like the dwarf come from far away, and everybody treated him like shit, and it was just this funny. Like I love the way Neil Stephenson's brain works in these little mini aspects of the story. It's just the main story itself isn't always as attractive to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. The only two books of Stevenson's that I really ever reread, just to be honest about it, is in the beginning there was The Command Line and Snow Crash. That's it. Those are the only two. Everything else, I've read them or tried to. Oh, 70s, yeah, but I would never read it. No, I really wouldn't. Even though I respect his talent, which is clear, I don't need to ever reread those. But Snow Crash is...
I would do the audiobook, I think, for Cryptonomicon.
Okay.
Just because there were so many weird moments in that book.
I was going to say, the one thing I would really love to have, and this is, Neuromancer has this, the problem is the best version is still not available in really high quality, is a really good BBC style, full cast reading of many of his books. Seven Eves would be great for that. Cryptonomicon would be great for that. What was the other one?
Oh, you know what? Listen, I am fully happy with the slightly edited reading of Neuromancer by by William Gibson.
No, I know you are, but they did a full cast one. It's very
I
good.
know they did. It is very good, but something about his drawl execution of it.
No, that's good too, but I like that there's one that was obviously recorded again before you had high quality recording media for it, so the only versions I've ever seen are basically tape rips, which are fine, but you could tell that it's really good, and I would love, maybe if anybody knows if they've redone it, I haven't looked lately, but I just think about full cast recordings of books are so good, and like I've listened to some Doctor Who ones, and they're exceptional when they have the original cast. They're so good that you might as well be watching the show, and they put a quality that Big Finish, I think, is the company that does most of the Doctor Who stuff. Whenever they do, they seem to be the best at it, and if somebody like that were to take, hell, I'd take Snow Crash too, because as long as you're just reading the book verbatim, you get a couple of good people in there, and I don't ever want to see a movie of it because I don't think they'll ever do it right. I just can't imagine because it would be too long.
Of Snow Crash?
Snow Crash, yeah. It would
They're
have to be a
trying.
series. Well, if they do
They're
a series,
trying.
I'm okay with it because that would be long enough. But a movie would never work. Yeah. It would have to be multi-part, and I don't even think they would do that right. But a full cast recording would be good. But, I mean, just because there are moments that I just don't know that they would ever film with the gravity that it's written. When the guy is telling Hero who Raven is and what he has with him, I don't know how you film that scene to properly make it work the way it's written. Once he's explained to him, do you know what's in that sidecar? And he's like, Jesus, if I knew how little you knew, I never would have gotten you involved in this. He's a sovereign. He's like, what does that mean?
He's a sovereign nation.
Yeah, he's like, well, just declare war. And he's like, you usually do that
when
with
he
nuclear
starts
powers.
Yeah, when he starts, but in contrast to that, when he starts murdering all these SWAT guys with glass knives. Like,
well, yeah. Well, that's the thing is because that's what I'm saying. I mean, we were almost going to recount the whole book, but there's parts where, like, when Hero doesn't understand how he's killing these people because he's sitting there going, "What could be going through these vests?" They obviously scanned him. He didn't have any metal. What weapon could he be carrying? Yep. And then the guy finally tells him, he's like, "No, he's making knives by chipping glass. He's got the thinnest glass possible. It'll go through anything." And then when he throws it and he deflects it and realizes, yeah, I didn't do that on purpose. I got extremely lucky that I even hit that thing. All that stuff.
Hero is very sober about his abilities. That's one
of the things that's great about him is he's very practical about the fact of what he can and can't do. He even makes a mistake where he says, I forgot my training. I swung the sword too quickly and it buried itself in a pole. I should have snapped it back and I didn't. That's why you don't do that, because it'll get stuck. Morons swing with all their might, and I just did it. Or they'll listen to reason, but they don't spell it with the capital R, so you don't know what he's saying, so you hear it as Hero hears it. He's like, what is he going to do, talk to them? He's like, oh, no. And then you see this reason with a capital R, and it's a minigun, And then he realizes that the mafia guy who's a dumbass wasn't using it right, because you're supposed to strap it onto your body. All that kind of stuff. It's like an immaculate book. It's such a great book.
It is. All the details are fantastic.
Yeah, and so that's a book where there's nothing.
And that's the thing is that you and I, we sometimes watch these movies, we read these books, where we pick up all these fun details that we might regurgitate into our own art at some point. But like, it's rare that you read or you see a movie or whatnot where every detail is kind of good detail, right? Yes. And the thing with Snow Crash is there's so much of that is so good in so many different ways. Because especially when they start getting into the weird history stuff, where it's like when I first read that book when I was in high school, the history stuff didn't kind of dawn on me as fascinating as it was. And as I got older and I listened to it, it suddenly got far more interesting. It's just, it's...
There's very, very little to no wasted pages in that book, if any. Everything is a setup for something later. Everything gets referenced. That's unusual. And I agree. The thing with the whole backstory, every time I read it, I kind of appreciate that more.
The problem, and so like for me, at the Stevenson and Gibson were always kind of the big gods of cyberpunk for me, right? But they were always very contrasted. And what's fascinating to me is that as Gibson has evolved, his books have become far more like Edgar Rice Burroughs novels. Do you know what I mean? Like there's his later work, which has come far more close to the present, feels more like you're reading Naked Lunch, like a toned down Naked Lunch, right? Yeah. Whereas Stevenson has just gone headlong into his weird stuff, and he's almost gone too far.
No, I
Where-
would actually I would say he has gone too far. Some of his stuff now just comes over as self-indulgent to the detriment of the story. And that's when you know you've made a problem. When you're starting to actually get me to stop wanting to read your stuff, you've done something wrong.
And it's fascinating, that evolution of an author, because like, I mean, you haven't read any Terry Pratchett, but I've read a lot of Terry Pratchett, and what's fascinating is that
isn't he the Night Watch person?
yeah, he's the Night Watch people.
I've read one Terry Pratchett book. There was one book which I think was book number 7 in whatever that you said, "Oh, read this," and I read it.
Oh, which is that the first Night Watch book, or is it the one with the gun where they discover the gun?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
Either way, yes. If you read early Terry Pratchett, he's less dry. It's very fun. He's very the humor is there.
It was very Douglas Adams, the book.
Very Douglas. Yes, his early stuff is more Douglas Adams, but then as he kept writing, it just got so wonderfully dry. dry to the point of parchment, but it was so witty in that, and it's fascinating a lot of these authors evolve in the same way that directors evolve. I was thinking about what's his name, who did Alien, Ridley Scott. I was thinking about Ridley Scott and kind of the evolution of Ridley Scott, and I was just thinking about how when he was always a good visual director, but as he got older, I feel like he became more sprawling, where for him to really achieve his vision, he needed a longer movie. It wasn't a matter of he wanted a longer movie. He needed a longer movie. He's one of these directors. He just needs a long movie to tell his story at that point, early Ridley Scott movies, I'm like, okay, you could bring it in under the wire here, but now later on in his life, it's like, I don't even want to bother unless it's a director's cut, because I know that it's not going to be his best work, because his best work is more long and visually beautiful, but long and sprawling.
So the one I read was the first one, Guards.
Okay.
I think because you told me there were a bunch, and I started with the first one, and I liked it. And the stuff about the dragon, I remember. I'm like, okay, yes, I remember this.
Yeah, there's a one in there where somebody discovers a gun, like it's like an early gun.
Probably is it Men at Arms?
I can't maybe, and the way that it turns the city upside down, and it's still hilarious and yet kind of dark and scary all at once. And I like that about Pratchett, how his shit can kind of turn on you. There's a really great book about a sorcerer. That one's fantastic, where you have all these wizards who are like, who have to learn and they have to learn magic, and they have to go to a school, and it's very hard work for them. And then they encounter a true sorcerer, someone who just lives and breathes magic effortlessly. And the way that it just fucking changes everything. And I think that's the book where is that the book where the librarian gets turned into an orangutan? I think that's the one where he gets turned into an orangutan, and then he never gets turned back. It's one of the things, and that's what I love about Pratchett, is this stuff that happens and it just stays that way. That character is always a orangutan. He never gets turned back. But yes, the evolution of authors, the way they change, and the things that become more important to them, and what's funny is that I prefer older Gibson over older, Neil Stephenson. They're both great still, but I prefer one over the other.
Yeah.
Whereas Snow Crash and Neuromancer are both the two towers of classic cyberpunk.
They are, yeah.
Which I feel bad, because I know Bruce Sterling is a majorly important sci-fi writer,
okay.
he always falls short of those two.
That's for us. People can, you may have Twin Towers in the literary world.
Everybody has an opinion,
Yeah, no. So it's definitely a subjective judgment.
Well, I read something fuck off weird.
Good.
And I don't understand why it exists, and I don't understand much about what the fuck I just read. But I thought it was perfect to bring to this. So, have you heard of the Jurassic League?
The name rings a bell.
Okay.
So I'll say possibly, but probably not enough to know what it is.
Okay, so Daniel Warren Johnson, he's the guy who did Murder Falcon, which is one of my favorite graphic novels. He did Wonder Woman Dead Earth. He did the one about the artist that they cut off her arm.
This is why I know what this is. When I think the last time we talked about it, I looked at his stuff.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I saw this weird cover with a dinosaur with a hammer, and I remember going, "What the hell is this?"
So this has finally been collected, and I finally read it.
So what is it's Dinosaur JLA or what?
Hold on. Yes, it's Dinosaur JLA. So
wow.
The best description I can give you for this book, right, is if a child was trying to recreate the Justice League while playing with their dinosaur toys.
Good.
Right? That's the best I can give you, because essentially you've got a planet of dinosaurs, with some being more kind of evolved than others. And they are humans, right? But they're like little, and they speak their own language. And you've essentially got, in this absurd situation, you've got dinosaur heroes. You've got dinosaur Superman, who's sent to Earth and is raised by the humans, which I thought was kind of fascinating. So he can speak dinosaur and human. You've got Batman, who's a T-Rex who lost his parents and is looking for revenge. You've got a Wonder Woman, who is basically one of the Triceratops people on their own island, right? They're all Triceratops females. You've got the Green Lantern's there. You have the Flash. You got Aquaman, who's actually quite hilarious. He's fucking nuts. And they are aware. They are they're not superheroes. They're just kind of all there with their own powers existing. And then they find that there's a dark force that's essentially bringing all these kind of bad people together. And they are essentially bringing humans for it to consume, because this thing needs the energy to grow. And essentially what it is it's a kaiju Darkseid, right? That does hatch about halfway through the book, and hilarity ensues. I'm not going to say this is probably, for me, the weakest Daniel Warren Johnson book, right? But and it's weak because it's missing the one thing that makes his books really special to me, which is that Daniel Warren Johnson writes these really silly books, right? But then he buries in them this deep emotional core that elevates them so far beyond the story they're telling. So, with Murder Falcon, it's a story about how do you deal with death, right? Now, it's juxtaposed against an alien invasion and these creatures that use your music to fight back, and a giant cybertronic Falcon Man who uses rock and roll music to destroy these creatures, right? But really, it's a book about how do you deal with death and dying, right? I fucking love that book. That other book, I think is it called Artifact? I can't remember, the one where the girl loses her limb, that she was an artist. And that one was very much about being an artist and losing hope in art when you are unable to create it, and how you have to make a choice. Art is a choice. His work always is about more than just the story he's telling, and I always loved that about him. That is missing from this book. I don't know what the larger story is he's trying to tell. I really do think that he wanted to see what it would look like if a child was just playing with dinosaurs, but it was the Justice League. And in that respect, it's ridiculously fun. I had a good time reading it. There's no negativity to this book, right? You are chuckling at it all the way through. And the thing is, you got to go in with a chuckle. You can't go in with any seriousness. This is not a book that I didn't have high expectations. I just wanted to know what the fuck was going on. And you know what? It was exactly what I thought was going on. It was a weird dinosaur Elseworlds with fucking dino people and humans, and there's a Joker raptor. I think it's called the Jokazoid or something like that. He's a raptor. It's so dumb that it's quite fun. And very often we read these books and they're very heavy and they take a toll. Right now I'm trying to finish the Prometheus series. by Alan Moore. I finally got my hands on the last volume, and I'm reading it, and it is so heavy. It's the end of the world. Everything's fucking going nuts, and I'm just like, oh my god, like there's, and you know how Alan Moore is. When when his when a storyline is concluding, he throws fucking everything at you, right? So I needed to take a break from that, and I just read this, and it was just such light fare. I would watch this as a movie. You know what? Reading this was like watching King Kong vs. Godzilla. It's the same air to it.
Sure.
So I'm not going to tell you that it's a great book, but I'm going to tell you that it's not a sad, bad, mad book. Like you read it and you're just like, oh, that was fun. That was fun. I don't know if I ever need to read it again, but it was a lot of fun. And for, the hour that it took me to read it, I was in a funny place. I was a little kid playing with dinosaurs. So, like I said, it is probably one of his weaker books, but only because he didn't try to encode it with a higher message. Unless I missed it. But at the end of the day, these are all JLA characters in some form or another as dino creatures. The big three are the leads, although like I said, Aquaman is quite funny.
Sure, yeah.
And the art is great. Like if you like Daniel Warren Johnson's art, it's there. And it just
well, that's what I would expect. I would figure.
Yeah, I could have a lot of
the
questions.
Artwork is going to be the same.
Oh yeah, I could have a lot of questions here, but I choose not to because it's not asking that of you. So I wanted to bring that to the table. So if you're looking for light fare, the Jurassic League is probably up your alley.
Yeah, well, it looks fun. It reminds me of, remember when Art Adams did the X Babies, where it's the X-Men, but
yeah. Honestly, you know what I kept thinking about?
Yeah.
I kept thinking about remember was it the Triceratons?
Triceratons. I thought of that from TMNT. Yeah.
Yeah. I kept thinking that this was
when you said that's the first thing I thought of was the Triceratons.
Yeah. It's like an alternate universe that I could see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles falling into.
Sure.
Like it's that kind of like Cerebus, Triceratons, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I could so see that. The only weird character in there for me is the Superman thing is a bit interesting because he's a space dinosaur. And like he looks.
Well, that's what he would be. Yeah.
No, I know, but
he looks like a dolphin saur or something.
Yeah. So like the thing when you look at him, he looks like honestly, he's got the body of Superman, but then he's got like a weird dino dolphin head. Yeah.
That's okay. So, that's fine.
So that's like kind of the one weird thing, and they didn't try to do anything stupid with it. There's like it's very much a classic JLA story. In that respect, it's kind of like we were talking about Cyberpunk, how like you have the technological elements, but really it's just a crime story. It's just a JLA story. It's just a JLA origin story, except fucking dinosaurs, man. So read it as a fun Elseworlds.
I think Extremity is the book you're talking about.
Oh, Extremity, that's the one.
Yeah, that's the one where the artist, from what I can tell.
She gets her arm cut off,
because I see a picture where she's trying to draw and she can't.
Yeah,
which is how I would be if I had my left hand. I couldn't draw with anything but my left hand.
Well, at the end, either way, yes. But the whole thing is that art is a choice. Daniel Warren Johnson is doing Transformers now.
I saw that. It's on because I was looking for the book you were talking about, the artist book. I saw the Transformers.
I'm so curious to see how he does that. Yeah. Granted, I think his Beta Ray Bill book is probably one of the greatest Beta Ray Bill stories.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's one of the few. That book has stayed with me. There's a thing
I would say that is the best Beta Ray Bill material since the original stuff that.
There's a sequence in that book that I don't want to say it haunts me, but it always stays with me. I think about it often, where at the end, towards the end of the book, Beta Ray Bill has found a way to turn himself back into his non-monstrous form. Yeah, and he's sitting there. I can't remember. He's sitting there with somebody, and they're like, hey, you won. You found a way to transform back. Do you feel better now? And he's kind of sitting there, and he looks at his reflection in the mirror, and all he can see is the monstrous version of him. Yeah. And he's just kind of like, I feel great. Yeah, I feel great. Yeah, and I always just thought about that scene, like it's just, and again, this is that whole, the author elevates the story by talking about. I mean, the Beta Ray Bill book is so much more about almost like confidence and how you actually see yourself and who you really are, and how other people perceive you, and so that's a great book. Oh yeah, what do you got, Mr. Wizard?
Well, I have a movie review. For those who are slasher aficionados, especially from the 80s, and even those who don't really watch these movies, you probably are aware that, like any cinematic trend, when something hits big, you start to see these attempts to do something unique while doing nothing unique. And in the case of 80s slasher films, what you often got were themed slashers. So slasher movies built around some kind of gimmicky theme. I've reviewed a few of these. Death Spa comes to mind. A supernatural gym inhabited by the dead wife of someone who is trying to kill people using gym equipment. Then there was Killer Workout, which was based around a woman who had been disfigured in a tanning bed accident, murdering
I remember that one. Yeah.
Which I spoke very highly of because I really do truly believe that inside of that movie, intentionally or not, is a very good story that was not properly executed. So I will die on that hill for that one because I think it really is. It's got so much potential in it. But anyway, another one that was recently remastered by the Vinegar Syndrome folks, who I absolutely love, is one from 1984 called Fatal Games. Now, based on some of the reviews I read for this, I did not buy it sight unseen. I decided to see if I could find any type of version of it that I could watch.
1984,
now,
I take it, right?
Correct, 1984.
Oh, that's a hell of a poster.
It is. So this one... Go ahead. Did you read the synopsis, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay. So before you read it...
Would you like me?
Well, hold on. Actually, you know what? Go ahead, read it. Yeah, read it. Go for it.
All right, so... A mad javelin thrower kills teenagers in the school. All promising athletes are executed in the most brutal way, especially naked girls in dressing rooms or saunas.
Yeah, it's fairly accurate, yes. So this was remastered, but I was not going to buy it, and it was not streamable anywhere in its remastered quality. However, I did find several YouTube channels that had it in what probably was its best previous form.
I mean, that line alone, a mad javelin thrower kills teenagers in the school.
And you've sort of identified the biggest problem with the movie, but let's start out with
Is it always with a javelin?
It's always with a javelin.
Well, it's a mad javelin thrower.
No, well, okay. Well, we'll get into it. So I looked around. I found some good YouTube. Well, not good. I found some watchable YouTube ones where it was clearly a VHS rip, but the audio was fine. And so I thought, okay, you know what? This is fine. I'll watch it. And from what I've read, even the remastered one, this was not a high budget film. So even the remastered version doesn't look. It's not like New York Ninja where it looks like it was filmed yesterday. This is clearly a movie that they got the best print that there was, which probably wasn't that great a print to begin with. So I don't really feel like I lost anything by that. So I watched it. And when it starts out, the idea of basing a slasher around Olympic hopefuls, which is really what the core premise is. It's a school, or I think it's supposed to be a high school. I can't even tell. It's not really clear, but the way they act makes me think it had to be a high school of some kind. And it would make sense because Olympic athletes tend to peak out quick, so they would have to be young. But it's about a group of Olympic hopefuls. And so I thought, okay, that could be interesting because there's lots of different Olympic equipment that could be used to kill people.
You were hoping for some creativity, is what you're saying.
Because usually that's what these things do. Like in Death Spa, they get killed by all different things. So you're taking advantage of the whole suite of available tools to some degree. Whereas in this one, it is just a person who is throwing a javelin. So the movie starts out, and we're immediately, the stage setting is very good. They very quickly establish exactly what the movie's setup is, so I will give them credit there. A lot of movies drag on in the beginning before you really know what's happening. This one starts out immediately, and you get the idea that, okay, this is a school that's very driven to get these kids into the Olympics. Specifically, there's a weird political subtext to this whole movie, which I don't really think they ever did anything with, where they talk about how, other communist countries, they subsidize their athletes, but, we're not going to do that here in the good old US of A. Everybody's does everything based on private, donations and everything, which is really, really tremendously stupid. It's actually one of the things about the Olympic program I hate most, the way the United States does it, is that these people who are supposed to represent the country in their finest form often are barely able to even train because they don't have enough money because nobody sponsors it. But that's a separate
shut it, you communist.
I know, I'm a commie. Anyway, so we get this weird opening scene after we see people doing Olympic stuff, who I don't think any of them are actually actors in the movie.
Hey, by the way, is that a thing in the movie? Like, is that like an argument that they make?
Yes, I almost captured it, but
it's so
it's
weird
very,
to have.
It's very weird. I mean, in some of the clips you will hear some of the political angle, but there's this guy who's like the corporate sponsor, and he's going on. It might be, I didn't capture it, but let me see if the quotes have it, because it's such a bizarre little thing that this guy says.
Fascinating. It's fascinating to have that kind of. I'm
trying to remember exactly what he says, but he says something very specifically about how it's, other countries subsidize their teams, but we're not going to do that because we're Americans and we're not going to be socialists or something. It's a weird thing. So that's what I said, is I captured it, but then it was the only really interesting bit of that whole thing, so I jettisoned it. But anyway, we get that thing, which doesn't really factor into the rest of the movie, so I don't even know why they did it, except somebody maybe the writer had a very, very specific political view. And so then basically the majority of the first, I would say, 15, 20 minutes is setting up the fact that most of these athletes that we see in the movie are almost all couples. They're almost all involved with each other, men and women. And so this is setting up the fact that there's romantic entanglements through almost all of them, except for one who is a javelin thrower who seems to be very angry and very off on his own. He's the only one who doesn't have some kind of romantic entanglement. But we get in the opening when two of the characters are showering, we get the first kind of drop about a little drip of information about the idea that they're all on some kind of enhancing drug. So I will play that clip right now.
Oh, interesting.
How'd it go yesterday?
It went pretty rough. Drew's still on my case.
Why? You won, didn't you?
Exactly, but you know how thick she and Shelley are. Besides, that's not what really worries me.
What?
It's what's her name down in Florida. She's a full second better than I am. She's the one I have to beat to win the Nationals.
Don't worry about it, babe. You'll do it. Now, have Diane give you that new stuff they got me out. It's helped me out a lot.
Frank, my worries about all this medication they've been giving us. It really could be dangerous.
Babe, everybody's doing it. You don't see them dropping dead, do you?
So this is wonderfully acted, by the way.
Is this like when was the big steroid boom in baseball?
Well, I think at this time it was the Germans or the Russians got caught doping. I think that was, that's where the joke about the German, athletes, the women are all like bulked up and everything. That was the long running gag, because I think the Germans, back when the Berlin Wall was still up, got caught doping or something. So that's around this time period. So I think that's what this is referring to. But basically, they go into this whole thing about the fact that they're doping. They never specify, but it becomes a thing where they're definitely using experimental drugs. Whether they're illegal or not never really gets touched on.
You know what? Listen, I learned not that long ago that, do you know at one point or another they banned baking soda as a performance enhancer?
Yes, I do know that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so weird because then it's off the list now of banned substances, because they realize that very few people can actually take baking soda, but because baking soda is an anti-acidic, if you can take it in the correct dosage, it actually causes the lactic acid in your muscles or something like that to be minimized so you can perform harder. Sure. And this has been tested. It absolutely does this. This is not like an old wives' tale. The problem is that if you get the dosage wrong, even a little, it gives you fucking explosive diarrhea.
Yes, I sort of remember that detail about, you would see athletes stuck in the bathroom or something like that.
It's very hard to get right. And because it's so hard to get right, a lot of people just gave up on it.
Yeah.
And it's off the list now.
Right. So,
but yes, there's a lot of weird stuff on there.
There is, yeah. So they never specify exactly what it is, and they never really even say what it does. But this is clearly, and they're all on it. So it's not like a secret thing where they go into the back locker room and the coach shoots them up and says, "Don't tell anybody." They're doing it as part of the program. So it's very odd to me because I don't really know for sure if the movie is saying that it's illegal or if it's just that they're worried. Like the girl says, "I'm worried about the side effects," but they don't ever really seem to make it a secret. So or maybe it's just sloppy script writing. It doesn't matter. So the first, like I said, 15, 20 minutes of this movie is really just establishing the cast of characters, that most of them are involved. And so we don't actually see anybody get killed until about 15 or 16 minutes into the movie, where a woman is working out and somehow doesn't see a person standing right in front of her who then spears her into the wall with a javelin. And so, and what, the other thing that's really weird about this movie is people don't seem to notice that people are missing for a while. They don't seem to really.
Well, they're all on different practices.
Yeah, so I guess, but they also seem to be very tight friends. So at some point it becomes, wait a minute, I haven't seen this person in 3 days, or whatever.
Yes, that would be weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the first girl gets killed. The body never is found. It's remarked upon that she's missing. So the killer is obviously able to very quickly clean up the crime and remove the body or something. We'll find out where later. But basically, like I said, the first about 20 minutes or up to the first kill is establishing the cast of characters. So we have all of our student athletes, and then we have 4 adults. And these 4 core adults will be throughout the movie. So they are the main doctor who's running the athletic program and is prescribing the drugs, the nurse who works for him who seems to be concerned about the side effects the children are having. And in fact, I'm going to play a clip where the doctor and her are discussing this. We have the male coach and the female coach. And that is basically the only adults we really see throughout the movie. I don't think we ever see a police officer. I don't think we ever see a teacher or anybody else in the whole movie but these 4 individuals as far as adults. And everybody else are the athletes. So at some point, after the first girl's been murdered, again, nobody knows, or they just know she didn't show up for practice, but they don't know anything else. And then we get a discussion between the head doctor or the head physician for the program, whatever. I don't think they even define what his role is in the movie, and the nurse who is responsible for monitoring the children. And this is their discussion about the drugs and the side effects and her concerns and his concerns, I guess, on what their levels of priority are as far as what they're doing.
What are you talking about?
I think we've got to go back to the previous dosage level, and we've got to go a little bit slower.
We can't let these incidents stop our work. What we're doing is too important. Sure, there are risks involved, but need I remind you that what we are trying to do is to maximize to the utmost the athletic potential of the human body?
Dr. Jardine, they are kids. They are kids. They are not guinea pigs.
Look, the East Germans and the Russians are doing the same thing. It's only in this country that we've neglected the scientific possibilities of the human body, and they're winning all the gold medals.
I think you're being very unreasonable.
Diane, this is my life's work, and I will let no one stop me.
Well, I hope you're going to take full responsibility, because I'm not going to take responsibility.
I already have. Now you can go back to work.
Okay. You're the boss.
Okay, so that's where I pulled East German and Russian out. Obviously, I had unconsciously internalized that, so that's what they're referring to. And so this is, of course, the political side, which is, okay, we're being beaten by those commie bastards, so we've got to make sure that we're drugging these kids to make them perform. We've got to get those gold medals. And as this is going on, there's a couple of things that happen. One which ends up being sort of a red herring that kind of works, and the other which is a red herring that they then shoot in the face. So the first thing we see is we keep cutting back to that one guy who's the javelin thrower, and the coach just is relentless on him, keeps saying, you got to be better, you got to be better, you got to be better, and he keeps throwing the javelin more and more angrily, which of course is what you are made to think, oh, well, if everybody's being killed with a javelin and this guy's having these anger problems, it's got to be him. But of course, you would know it isn't him if you watch a lot of these movies right away. But also, he gets killed like halfway through the movie, which destroys any myth that was actually going on, which I can't understand why they did that. They should have left that guy alive till the very end to make it a shock when it wasn't him, even though, again, an experienced horror film watcher would know that. But I don't think this movie was playing it as a subversion. I think they just didn't know what they were doing. But in any event, we keep seeing that with weird music. I almost captured just the soundtrack because it is bafflingly incorrect for this movie. It's not. It's just like there's like almost springy sounds like boing and like weird like rattles. It's worth listening to because it's so weird. But they show him and it's like sinister like boing music while he's throwing his javelin. So again, I think that's the idea. And then at one point we see one of the athletes being massaged by Diane, the nurse's assistant, who then seems to start to hit on her. And the student isn't interested because she's straight and she has a boyfriend, so she kind of skedaddles out of there. But I didn't know what that was all about because we don't see anything about that really for the rest of the movie. It's not clear what that was meant to imply.
Maybe it's just there to throw you off, so you think, oh, it could be that.
Well, I thought that, except then the female swimming coach is gay and does have a girlfriend that is one of the student athletes. So it's almost like although I read some background on this, apparently that actress became a born-again Christian while she was on, like, away from the movie and came back and then wouldn't kiss the other girl on the lips because she'd become a born-again Christian. So maybe they were reordering things and trying to see if they could make something happen, but it never pays off in anything, so I don't know. I have a hunch it's not that. I think they were just trying to set something up with this woman, and they didn't really know how to do it properly, or they fumbled it. I don't really know. But in any event, the movie, after the warning about the drug side effects, and what they're talking about is some of the kids get sick. They have these really terrible stomach cramps or get headaches, and that's what her concern is about the side effects of the drugs. And I forgot to mention that before she talked about it in that clip. So, the movie goes on, and we see lots of nude women, and there's hysterically a shower scene with all these student athletes. All the women are completely nude, top to bottom. All the men are wearing underwear or towels, which tells you something about who was making this movie. So we get long scenes of, some really, really funny, terrible acting scenes where there's kind of internal drama with the kids, and we see a couple more people get killed. And I should mention, this movie does have actual good directing at multiple points. There's a kill scene where there's a girl running in the hallways, nude of course, where she's being hunted by the killer in the tracksuit with the javelin. And you see outside the kids have come back to the campus because the one girl forgot her books. And the girl is pounding on the window. And you don't see it at first, but then she shows up and the camera kind of goes up to her and zooms in. You see her banging on the windows, but they can't hear, even though if I was in that much terror, I would have shattered the window. And then it kind of comes back down, and one of the girls thinks she hears something and looks up, and then the girl is gone. And it's done very well. So this, as much as this movie is a low budget and not terribly well acted movie, the direction is actually pretty good at times. There's actually interesting shots. There's good use of lighting. And I didn't look this up, but the director really didn't do anything else. That's what I thought. The director wrote one other movie, but never directed anything else, which is maybe because this movie underperformed. Who knows? There's lots of things that go on. But the movie is not terribly made in terms of direction. I actually think
maybe they just had one idea.
Or they had a bad experience with this and decided, screw it, I'm not doing it. Who knows? So, as I said, we keep seeing people getting killed, and, we see the javelin, and there's a couple of near misses with the different students, where, like, one's going into a locker room, and the killer's there, and almost gets caught, and then, finally, because now at this point I think we're up to 3 or 4 of the athletes are now dead, or missing, and now we finally have a meeting between the 4 adults, because they realize, maybe something's going on, because these students seem to be disappearing, and this is their discussion about it.
Frank. What's the matter, Phil?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is the discussion between these students.
My folks last night. They got the police out looking for him, and the coaches know all about it. They haven't said a word to us. We find that a little strange. Why would the coaches keep it a secret? That's what's got me worried.
Now it's the adults, I think.
First Nancy Wilson.
Here we go.
Then Sue Ellen Baines. And now Joe Ward. This morning the police came. And I couldn't tell them a thing. Now, what the hell's going on here?
Well, I spoke to Sue Allen's boyfriend in San Francisco. She never showed up for his graduation as she was supposed to. And Joe Ward seems to have disappeared without a trace. Frankly, I'm baffled.
It's unbelievable. 3 of our 7 medal winners have completely vanished, and we don't have the faintest idea where they are?
Well, I think this happened once before in the Olympics.
Maybe they had an adverse reaction to some of the medication?
Nonsense. I mean, you as the coaching staff have the responsibility of watching these kids, and frankly, I'm not going to mince words. If you can't do it, look for work elsewhere.
Right. So we got the opening with the two students because two of them, or at least one of them, is immediately kind of worried that something's going on. Everybody else is blowing them off, as you heard. They don't think there's a big deal going on here. Then the adults are talking, and the primary concern is, hey, we need these athletes because there are medal winners. And you heard that the nurse again brought up, hey, are the drugs maybe doing something? And he dismisses it. And, of course, says, go find these kids and figure out what's going on, or, what else. And Joe Ward, I believe that was the one who was the javelin thrower. So he's dead at about, I think it's like a 30-minute mark. So, again, that idea that he might be the killer, which could have worked to a certain point, is immediately just gone because he got killed with a javelin. So, and again, the bodies are just gone. Nobody has seen any blood. Nobody, and even though the javelin guy got killed in broad daylight, yet no one saw anything, and they were able to, I guess, clean up the blood from the grass because he was out on the field. So there's a shocking lack of evidence from what is not a very clean way of killing people. Let's put it that way. But the adults think that this is more of, because at one point somebody mentions, that, if they don't show up, then we're going to throw them out of the program, like almost like they're just playing hooky or something like that. But at this point, it's beyond that. So, then we get a little stretch of kind of interpersonal drama between two of the athletes where the one's father, the one's father thinks that being an Olympian is a waste of time, and so he doesn't want her to do it. And then the other one's father is trying to get him into baseball tryouts for some reason. And so this leads to a fight between the two of them. And I captured this only because I titled this clip "Great Acting," because this is the level of performance you're going to get out of most of the people in this movie. So I'll just play this with no additional comment.
Fine, right. Yeah, whatever you say. Right. Talk to you Thursday, right. Hi.
What's the matter?
Well, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And bad news and bad news.
Well, forget the bad news and tell me the good news.
Good news is I still love you.
Oh, shit. What's the bad news?
Oh, shit.
Bad news is I got accepted for the tryouts this summer.
That's the bad news?
In Pittsburgh at the Pirates summer camp.
You've got to be joking.
I'm not.
That's baseball and you're a runner.
I know that. But my dad's always wanted me to have a career in baseball. And so he's talked to this scout who works for the Pirates and arranged for a tryout.
I thought we were spending the summer together, Phil.
I know.
Ah, shit.
But if I refuse my dad, he'll never speak to me again. He's gone out on a limb to get me this tryout, and I can't just say, screw you.
But Phil, our plans together.
Annie, try to understand.
Hey, never mind. If that's all our plans meant to you, I've got some practicing to do anyway.
Am I going to see you later
shit.
tonight? Fine, forget it.
Yeah, so don't come in here expecting a high level of thespianism because you're not going to get it. But
shit.
That whole sequence is doubly funny if you watch the movie because at first she doesn't want to spend any. Well, I shouldn't say she's afraid to spend a lot of time alone with him because her father doesn't approve of them, maybe sleeping together outside of marriage, and he keeps pressuring her to let's go away, and then of course immediately the father calls and it's like, well, screw that. And even though that should make it easier for her, she gets very upset about it, even though she had been protesting doing any of this stuff for a good 10 minutes before this scene. So it's not exactly logically consistent, and that's okay. So then we get a bar scene, which I thought, okay, this is where we're going to find out something interesting about either the male coach or the female nurse, because they're talking about the fact that the male coach tried to be an Olympic athlete and he failed. And she's saying, that it must be tough to train these kids or whatever because you didn't make it. And he's like, I wish I'd made it, but that's just the way that it goes. And she says something about, are you jealous of him? And he says, no, but he's also kind of drunk. So you don't really know if he's telling the truth. And then she's also talking about some type of, like, I know what it's like not to make it. So I'm like, okay, one of these two is probably the killer then, because we're kind of getting, this is about halfway through the movie.
We're getting to the motivation.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of what might drive somebody to do this, right? So I thought it was one of the two of them. And then the next thing we see is they get to the school, and the student, the one who had just had the fight, she was training. That's why she said, I'm going to go train. By the way, these students amazingly all seem to train by themselves in a school that's pitch black, which is sort of surprising to me, but that's just generally how all these kids get killed. So she's on her own, and she starts getting chased by the killer, and she's running, and she goes into, and she starts screaming. She's not running, but we see her in a towel by herself, and then we hear screaming. And then the coach and the nurse had just gotten back, and they find her on the floor in the locker room, and it looks like she's been stabbed. But then what you find when they actually pick her up, she's having a really severe stomach cramp. So I thought, for a minute I thought they were exonerated because I thought she was going to be mortally or gravely wounded, and they were going to find her, and it was going to be either the head guy or the lesbian coach for some reason. Because I'm like, oh, well, lesbian coach in this type of movie, if it's following the Italian Giallo thing, there was a kind of not great trend of making the killer gay or, having some kind of cross-dressing thing. That's a big thing in Italian slasher. So I went, okay, maybe we're going down this road. It is the mid-'80s. I'm not expecting a lot of political correctness in the depiction of people who are not, straight. So I didn't know. So the nurse says, I'll take her back to my house and, because I know how to treat this. So she takes her back. Oh,
no.
Well, and this is the same one that she'd been giving the massage to and started to kind of hit on. So I went, okay, is this going to be like an extended version of that? Are we going to find out that there's some kind of sexual predator thing here? Is she going to be the killer who's preying on girls because she's repressing something? Or is this just going to be a gross excuse for a lesbian scene? Because, hey, it's a 1984 slasher.
There's a lot of boobs, yeah.
And so far, we're not seeing women in a very elevated position in the film. So either one could have been what we got. But instead, we get a little more backstory on the nurse while she's kind of tending to this girl. And this is a snippet of that, the kind of significant portion.
Those photos look so old.
They are old. '1936 Olympics.
Really?
It's my mother. She won a gold medal.
She dead?
No, she's not dead. She's definitely not dead. My mother's a very vibrant lady, Annie. My mother was famous. People respected my mother. You should hope that you could be as dedicated, as committed as she was. I've been trying to be as good as my mother all my life.
Jeez, look at that.
Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it. I mean, the constant workouts, the stress, and the pain.
Everybody's got to decide that for themselves, Annie.
I don't mean I'm gonna quit. This is my last chance. Pretty soon I'll be too old to compete. You've got to help me, Diane. You've got to help me, please.
Okay, Annie. I'll help you.
So now I'm seeing her
Not at all what I expected was going to happen.
No. So I thought, okay, wait, are we setting up at this point in the movie? Are we setting up that the mother, because it's so weird how she says, no, she's definitely not dead. She's very vibrant. And I'm thinking, okay, is this a Psycho thing now? Are we going to get a Psycho ripoff where the mother is going to, is doing this and the nurse is covering it up or what? Because it's such a weird scene that kind of comes out of nowhere. And so I wasn't, now at this point I was kind of thrown off a little bit because I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm still pretty convinced it's either her or the head coach, the male coach. But now with the mother thing, the fact that she's so insistent about her not being dead, it's such a, number one, it's a weird question for a kid to go, oh, is she dead? And then, no, she's not dead. She's vibrant. She's very alive. I'm sitting here going, what is this setting up now?
That phrase, she's vibrant, she's very alive. That's very weird too.
It's very strangely presented as if the mother is, and we've never seen the mother up to this point. So at no point has anybody been shown that you would think would be the mother or that we would think the mother could be. Not somebody who's, looks a little older but is still in the program or, somebody we're hearing about. So we haven't seen anything yet. So I'm sitting here going, okay, Now I have to pay attention. Is a new character going to get introduced, or are we going to find out, I don't know, that the drugs made somebody not age or something? Like, where are we going? You know what I mean? Because at this point, I really don't know where the movie's going.
Now you don't know what's happening, so you're expecting something truly left field.
Yes. So we get a more time where we got more into relationships. One of the guys gets severely injured coming on a dismount, so now he's on crutches. And then another girl gets killed in the pool, which is actually a neat scene. Again, about the direction. There's a neat, they film it underwater, kind of looking up. So there's, again, these little moments where you go, okay, this isn't just a cash grab direction thing. There's actual composition in shots. Somebody's thinking about it. Somebody's, making it try to look interesting, even though it just ends up being somebody with a javelin through them every time. And this is one of the things I sat here and went, why would you not use something else in these scenes? You have, again, shot puts, discus, weights.
Because they only know how to use a javelin.
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, so finally we then get a sequence where the guy who broke his foot is being driven back to the school after getting out of the hospital. And he is the same one from earlier who was concerned about the fact that he thinks these people are getting killed. And so we get another discussion where he's insisting, he's like, no, I think something is going on. And this is where he's really now come to the conclusion that something really terrible has happened. And this is about, I would say, an hour or so into the movie. So we've only got maybe half an hour left. I don't even think it's 90 minutes. And finally, somebody has come to this conclusion.
Come on, Frank. Something's definitely wrong. Wait a minute. I'll help you out.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about Joe Ward. Nobody's seen him for 2 days.
Well, let me tell you something. Joe Ward is weird. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, what about Nancy Wilson? Is she weird, too? And Sue Allen? She hasn't been heard from for 4 days. And the strangest part is, nobody's willing to talk about it.
Oh, come on. Now, there's got to be a rational explanation.
Well, what do you think? The winners are quitting? I think something terrible's happening here at the Academy.
Like what?
You want my theory? I think they're dead.
Oh, David, lighten up.
Yeah, so they're still trying to insist that, only one person seems to think at this point that people are being killed off. And even there you hear, at this point, half the team is missing. Half the team has not shown up. They're nowhere. And yet somehow most people think that they're just off on vacation or something. I don't know what the thought process would be here. But that guy, the one who's sure that there's dead, that everybody is hurt or something's going on, there's a conspiracy, he calls the other guy, the only other guy who thinks something is off, and he says, look, I'm going to go into the school and I'm going to look around the records, because he seems to think maybe it's the drugs, that something is going on with the drugs and they're covering it up or something. So he's like, I'm going to go over there, come with me, even though he doesn't wait for him. So the guy whose leg is in a cast, who has the least mobility of anybody in this athletically driven movie, makes the genius move to go by himself. He says, meet me there. Why would you not wait? If you think something's going on, then why would you, again, go into a school that seems to have no lights working? Or at least nobody flips a switch anywhere. It's not even like the thing where they flip a switch and the light doesn't work. All the lights are off, and none of these athletes, I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe they're playing it up that the athletes aren't all that smart. I don't know. But nobody turns on a light. So he goes in and he's looking around, and he ends up, the killer is there, and the killer starts chasing him, and he's running away. And
he's hobbling away, yeah.
He's going up and down stairs. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he finally ends up in the boiler room, and he sees all these lockers that have blood coming out of them, and he breaks them open, and sure enough, I know. Apparently, none of the janitorial staff went down there and noticed any of this.
Hey, did you know there was a ton of? You know what? Hold on, I'm going to say this for this. Let's do perspective on this for a second, right?
Sure.
Have you read about that court case of that guy in California who cut up his wife and his in-laws? Did you read about this?
Oh yes.
And he tried to he cut them up into pieces, right? And then he put them in garbage bags, and he tried to pay a bunch of migrant workers to dispose of the bags for him, and told them that they were full of Halloween costumes and other things. And when they opened one of the bags, they were like, these bags are heavy. They're like full of meat.
Uh-huh.
They opened one of the bags, and they realized that they were looking at a belly button, which scared the shit out of them. So they brought the bags back to the guy and refused to get rid of them. And then when they called the cops, apparently the cops didn't listen to them, right? And finally, when things got straightened up and the cops got there, the bags were gone, right? And that's the thing, is that you talk about people being nutty and stupid in movies like this, and then you hear the fact that this guy dismembered his wife and in-laws and tried to get migrant workers to dispose of the bags for him by saying that they were full of Halloween costumes.
Right. So, yes, there may be a reasonable explanation, although, again, you would think if these students are missing. But whatever. In any case, the kid finds him. And then, for some reason, the next person who shows up is not the guy he called, but his girlfriend shows up. Or no, wait, is this his girlfriend? Yes,
Someone's
this
girlfriend.
is his girl. No, I believe it is his girlfriend. No, I'm sorry, it isn't. This is the girlfriend of the guy who was having the fight with the baseball player. So then she shows up before the baseball guy does. Then the baseball guy shows up. In the meantime, she's been pursued by the killer. The guy with the cast gets killed. And then the girl sees him. She starts running. The javelin thrower gets her into an office. They're kind of dancing around, and the javelin thrower waits for some reason to throw the javelin for a very long time. Throws it, only catches her side, doesn't impale her. And that's when the guy shows up, and for whatever reason, the killer is... I remember at that point, the killer actually picks up a shot put. At this point in the movie, where we're almost at the end.
Well, his javelin's busy.
I know, but it's just like, okay, now you're really just pointing out what you could have done in this movie you didn't do. But anyway, so then the boyfriend shows up, and for whatever reason, that scares the killer off. Why the killer wouldn't just throw the shot put and kill him, but I guess the killer is a one-person killer.
Yeah, he only goes one-on-one, man.
Well, whatever. So the killer runs off, and the guy comes in and says, hey, I saw the office. Diane is in her office. I'll bring you there, and she'll fix you up. And, of course, there's 10 minutes left in this movie.
Diane is either dead or she's the killer.
Diane or her mother is there or something. So they go into the office, and they're looking and in the back you see that the killer's there, and the killer is taking off all their stuff, and sure enough, it is Diane. So it's the mother thing.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, wait. There's more coming. So Diane basically manages to get all of her stuff off before anybody notices that she's taking off all of her stuff, and she just happens to have her nurse outfit on underneath conveniently. So she tells the guy, she's like, go call 911. I'll take care of this. And she comes over, and she's what seems to be actually treating her wounds. She appears to be actually, helping
Is this
her.
the girl that she told she was going to help?
Yes. So
she is going to help her.
Well, that's what it seems like. Either the whole thing where she was hitting on her, maybe she has affection for her, like there's something, but she just tried to kill her, so that doesn't even make sense. Whatever. Again, you can't really apply too much logic.
Does she have the mother's consciousness in her own head?
No, I thought that too. And no, so as the girl is laying there and she's getting the swabs ready to help clean her wounds, the girl looks over, and for some reason in this office, the nurse has an old paper that has a headline that says, sex change operation doesn't work, Olympic champion disqualified, Diane Payne, javelin winner, tests showed too many male hormones. And I went, whoa, man. Okay, number one, why would she keep this? Why is this sitting in her
office at work?
Yeah, just sitting there on the floor or on a table where this girl just sees
I secretly want someone to catch me. That's why.
Sure. So now we understand that when she was saying that thing about, her mother, that this must be some type of complex where she felt like the only way she could win was to have a sex change into a woman, but the male hormones were still there, so she got disqualified. So they never really expound on it, but I mean, that's the only thing that really makes sense. So obviously the girl figures out that, she's the killer because she's a javelin thrower. So she starts chasing her around, and we get this whole long extended sequence where she's chasing her. And then we get this final sequence where Diane is yelling at the girl, and her voice conveniently suddenly changes. So I'm just going to play this. Now I did.
Oh no, did they dub her?
Either they dubbed her or they dropped her thing down a bunch of octaves. You can tell me what you think when we're done here. But I shortened this.
This isn't Einhorn as a man, is it?
Yeah, it is. But again, I will play it and you can judge for yourself. But I did cut a lot of long pauses out of this. So if you watch this movie, this sequence goes on for much longer because there's parts where she's just stalking her around. But I wanted to just kind of capture all of the actual audio of it because it is something. So let me just play this now.
Hey! I know you're in here. Where are you? I'm going to have to disqualify you now. I don't like to have to disqualify you, but that's what I'm going to have to do!
God.
No!
Einhorn is a man!
Yeah, it's not done yet. Just wait. It gets interesting.
I can't stop him.
I cannot stop him, Annie. He must disqualify anyone who might ever make it to the Olympics! You understand? I have sacrificed everything. I have risked everything just to win. We even became a woman just to win.
God. Oh, man. Okay.
Annie, I'm not going to stop now. I am going to win. I am not going to stop now, Annie. Annie!
So right after this, because this is basically the end of the movie now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh yeah. We'll discuss it in a second. So basically, the killer Diane chases her up onto this high platform, and then he manages to knock her off, and she falls down and gets impaled on a championship trophy. Cut to credits.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
That's the movie. So yeah. That's why I want to play that whole thing, because then she's saying, well, I can't stop him. So, okay, so it's not the mother that's in her consciousness. It's apparently her former self that felt like the only way she could win was to become a woman, I guess, because they considered that, I'm saying they, as in there's two people in this person's brain, that he thought that becoming a woman would make it easier because he could compete at a lower level with the same body, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that makes sense with what the movie presents here.
It's definitely weird that they decided that was the direction they wanted to win. The
guy. Because I was sitting here thinking ahead of the movie.
And the voice modulation. Yeah, the voice modulation is terrible.
I do love the fact that she cuts back to the normal or the woman's voice for a second and then just reverbs back into, the other voice. And win what? What is killing all these people going to do? She can't compete. So I don't even. I think
at that point you're beyond logic. It's kind of mental illness
madness.
At that point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's yes. So.
And that doesn't have to have logic. That has its own internal logic.
No. And that's what I mean is, so when she says I'm going to win, I don't know what she even could think. I'm
going to win because you're not going to win.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it is. You can't win now because you're dead. Therefore, I'm going to win.
Going to win something. So you often say, and you're correct, that I try to extract quality out of movies that don't really have.
No, actually, there seems to be a lot of interesting elements to this. Like, I do believe that.
I agree.
Yeah, like I do think that the transgender villain thing is an eye roll, but beyond that, the having a slasher movie with experimental drugs about Olympic hopefuls is actually quite fascinating. And if you remade that today, I just think that you have to revamp the transgender villain. You'd have to do something else with it.
I don't know that you'd even have to change that, but I think what you have to set up, and I thought they were at the end. I went, you had an opening for this, and you didn't do anything with it, because what they could have done is they could have kept this. Number one, they should have had different weapons and javelins. I'm sorry, I know she was a javelin thrower, but you have to have variety, because otherwise, anybody with any basic investigative anything because they said the police. Well, they never show the police, but apparently the police showed up.
Honestly, what it should have been was that she should have ended up at the nurse's house for some reason. She should have said something like, "I'll take her back to my house. Call the police," right, or something like that. And then you see the articles in her house.
Yes,
I could see her having those articles in her house,
absolutely,
but not in her office
not in her
at
office.
work.
This implies someone who's so
Yeah.
sloppy that they would have been caught by now.
That's not light reading.
You gave us this thing about the mother being driven and an Olympic winner and, wanting to be the best. Where was the scene where the mother was basically berating a young boy saying, if you were my daughter, you would have won medals. The fact that you're competing, you can't compete as a man. You're not like you do the thing where she's berating her or him and making her think that the only way to be able to win and the only way to be anything in her mother. I never wanted a son. I thought I would have a daughter that I could have follow my footsteps, but your bastard father ran off before he could give me the daughter I wanted. I never want there's ways to set this up that could work. I'm not saying that necessarily.
No, I see the direction you're going with this.
Yeah, and that would then at least explain this. Now, you're still going to have problems with this type of character, but at least it would make a kind of sense to have this.
Yeah,
be the reaction.
It's way too Einhorn as a man.
Well, it is, but if you play it correctly, as again a mental illness, like you said, because there's every indication that's where we are at the end of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there again, you sit here and go, okay, so this individual who's this deranged or has this much of a problem is able to operate completely normally as a nurse all this time until now, and suddenly there's no break because nothing happens.
Unless it's the closer you get to getting what you want, the more mad she gets.
Well, then you have to set
I mean?
that up too, where somebody says to her, Diane, before we started working with athletes like
but
this,
you know
what?
What's weird? I thought I heard a weird voice modulation on her in the bar scene.
Well, we never got a bar scene. You mean the house?
The scene? Yeah, when she's talking to the coach.
When she's talking to the coach.
You played a scene where she's talking to the head coach.
Oh, you mean the doctor?
The doctor,
the
head
about
doctor.
The side effects?
Yeah, there's a scene where the two of them are talking.
Yeah, here.
And
let's see
I thought,
is it this?
I think we've got to go back to the previous dosage level, and we've got to go a little bit slower.
We can't let these incidents stop our work. What we're doing is too important. Sure, there are risks involved. But need I remind you that what we are trying to do is to maximize to the utmost the athletic potential of the human body?
Dr. Jardine, they are kids. They are kids. They are not guinea pigs.
Look, the East Germans and the Russians are doing the same thing. It's only in this country that we've neglected the scientific possibilities of the human body, and they're winning all the gold medals.
I think you're being very unreasonable.
Diane, this is my life's work, and I will let no one stop me.
Well, I hope you're going to take full responsibility, because I'm not going to take responsibility.
I already have.
I thought when she was saying they were kids, that there was a slight bit of modulation. That could just be me.
Well, listening to it, her voice does sound a little different. So maybe they were trying to do the thing where maybe the direction was, okay, when you get angry, lower your voice a little.
Yeah.
If you're being upset about something, that might have been. It doesn't sound like modulation, but she does sound a little bit different. So it could have been that the idea was when you get angry, you start to lose control a little bit, and that. So
yeah,
that
I mean, and
listen,
if you want to take the mental health aspect of this, when she's in certain situations, she's totally in control, right? And then sometimes the other aspect of her takes control, and it's almost like she's gone into a dream, and she's this other. I mean, if we're dealing with what is essentially a kind of multiple personality.
Sure.
Right? I mean, when the other personalities take control, you're in the back seat.
Schizophrenia now? I think it's considered.
I don't. It's probably
because they don't call it multiple personality disorder anymore. It's a disassociative.
No,
I think, or whatever.
Yeah, but essentially, it's still multiple personality disorder.
Sure.
So in that respect, when that movie came out, it was still multiple personality disorder.
Right.
She has a female aspect and she has a male aspect, and when the male aspect is control, it's hunting all these people. It's angry. It's pissed off. And so towards the end, the female aspect of the personality is trying to restrain the male aspect of the personality, but the male aspect is too hungry, it's too angry, it's too close to getting what it wants. It doesn't make any sense because it's not there all the time. It just has a blind sort of urge to kill those that might exceed his ability.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, Yes.
Like I said, I could see this movie being made today. Now, it might be a little bit on the line, but if you did it right and gave it an explanation, I think this movie's basic framework could be done. I don't think you could not do this movie.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Right, but it would have to be done more delicately and more thoughtfully than this. This goes from 0 to offensive in 2.2 seconds.
You need much better plotting. You need much better characterization.
Yeah, and you can't have her suddenly have a male voice. You can't be doing
No,
that.
it's not even that. It's not even she has a male voice. She's like, she's almost like in Young Guns when they do peyote.
Oh God!
And everyone's voice is like,
yeah.
"Do you see that chicken?
Yes,
Anybody?"
Yeah.
Yeah, they dropped it really low,
Very, very weirdly low. And
Yes.
like I said, the fact that she shifts back and forth is
bizarre. I mean, the shifting back and forth is actually quite good, that idea. Because, I mean, it's the thing is, the different personalities will have different voices. Yes. And what they're trying to do makes sense.
But not with the modulation. That's
it's just very ham-handed.
Yeah, you have to make it where it feels like the person is organically changing their voice, not that somebody flipped an effect switch somewhere that suddenly shot them into, a Playmobil My First Recorder Land, which is what that sounds like. So
I'm a man now.
I'm a man now. Yeah. So I think there's an interesting aspect to this movie that, as often is the case here, was not properly executed. And I think the two biggest problems are, because a movie like this, there's two things you need out of it. One is a slasher film has to have imaginative, interesting kill scenes. And I'm sorry, but a javelin...
By and large, yes. They usually have some kind of... I mean, there should have been a scene where that javelin went right up someone's ass and came out their mouth.
Well, or again, you use other equipment, because the first girl
honestly, no, you know what? Even if you use the javelin as part of it every time, but not as the main thing. Like they threw it across the room and hit a rope that dropped the thing.
The first girl was lifting weights. She throws the javelin, it severs the tendons in her arms. Her arms come down. She smashes her skull with the bar.
Let's end this show by coming up with some creative ways to kill somebody utilizing a javelin as part of the machinery of their death.
Okay, right? So I will give you the kill scenarios the movie gives us. The first one is the girls lifting weights. The second one is... What is the second one? There's the one where the guy's just out throwing a javelin and gets killed with a javelin. I almost like that one because it's somewhat funny. That the guy with the javelin, who we thought was going to be the killer, was killed and revealed not to be the actual murderer 30 minutes in with a javelin. That's almost a joke. So I'm okay with that one. We can leave that one as vanilla. But yeah, first girl lifting weights and gets impaled on the wall. The second girl, or the second person, is killed running away naked after taking a shower. Her death, I mean, she literally
honestly, if I was going to do the weightlifter, what were they doing? Were they bench pressing? What were they doing?
She was lifting straight up. Like, I guess, what is it called when you just lift the weight straight over your head without a spotter, which is stupid. She's
like
standing
a press.
Up straight.
She was just doing a straight press over her head.
Straight up in the air and down behind her head. Whatever. Well, that's what I'm saying. You throw the javelin to knock her arms so that she drops the thing and it splits her head in half.
Yeah, I mean, that's if she was doing a bench press, I would have put the javelin through like her arm or something like that, so she drops the bench press on her neck.
Yeah. Okay.
And like basically, something like that. Yeah.
So second one is killed. That's the one who was banging on the windows and nobody saw her. Now for that one, I would have had her open the window, go to yell. She throws the javelin through the window. The broken glass comes down, cuts her head off.
Or I would get her stuck in the window and have her stick the javelin right through her ass and have it come out her mouth.
Okay. Well, you could do that too.
I mean, listen, if you want to do gruesome.
I don't know that would have been. I don't know if 84 that would have been released as is. That probably would have gotten an X rating. Whereas decapitations, well, those are just a dime a dozen.
Oh, the javelin coming out of her mouth. I mean, that's not that bad.
Well, I think because up the ass would imply sexual violence, which at that time would have gotten you an X rating. If you had literally going up her ass, out her mouth.
Right. So if I stab you in the back with a javelin, it's okay. But if I stab you in the asshole with a javelin, that's sexual.
Come on, that's how it works. I mean, that's, RoboCop, you can shoot somebody 80,000 times, but don't show a sex scene. But anyway, then the third one that's the javelin guy, which I would leave vanilla because, again, I think that's funny myself. And then, yes.
Honestly, what would have been funny for that, I don't know what the sequence was, but in my mind, when I think of funny javelin death, I'd have them been practicing in a field at night, so like you can't see where the javelin is landing. So he throws the javelin into the dark, and then he hears like a noise, and he's kind of looking to see what's coming on, and the javelin comes flying back at him.
I think he was just out. It was just the middle of the day, and I'm looking at it because I'm just scrubbing through it. So he got killed.
Because that would be a funny way.
He's just out on the field, and he gets javelin from the back, so it comes out the front of him. And he's just sitting there. It's very boring. There's nothing to it. Whereas, if he threw the javelin and you didn't see it for a minute, and then he got hit with it, where you almost think he threw it so far it went around the planet and came back and stabbed him.
Yeah, like a boomerang down.
Yeah, like he Supermaned it. That would be like, it'd be funny. That one. But like I said, there's almost an in joke on that. And then the last one is a girl in a pool where the killer, I should have pointed this out because this is almost absurd, is in a full scuba gear underneath in the pool.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So she apparently knew this girl was going to do practice laps. You see the air tank, the goggles, the whole thing.
Honestly, what I would have done with that sequence, still using the javelin, was I would have grabbed the victim, dragged her to the bottom, and then speared her to the bottom with the javelin so she couldn't get away, so she drowned.
That's fine. I probably would have tied the javelin to the scuba gear and rocketed it by shooting it in the back into her so she blew up. But, that probably would have made some noise. So probably not. So yours would probably be more acceptable.
Well, I'm thinking of like awful, agonizing,
Sure.
where the javelin isn't the main murder weapon. It's just part of the process.
Yeah. And then the last one is the guy in the cast, which I would have had him get stabbed, go down the stairs, re-breaking both of his legs and his arms, and then he lands and breaks his neck, so his body's all twisted, even though the javelin is the thing that got him.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But that feels very, you want something more gruesome than that.
Oh, I don't know. If you do the sound effects right, that's if you do a dummy with its legs all bent all over the place, you have only the guy's head is real and it's all twisted around, kind of like in the new Suspiria where that girl gets completely bent out of shape. That could work. It's gruesome. So, but
honestly, that could have been anything. She was just chasing him, so that could have literally been anything.
It could have literally been anything. So that's the one problem.
Honestly, you know what it should have been? Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
It should have been Rods from God. He should have made it all the way to the front door, right? Think that he's gotten away, and then you look up and you realize the murderer is just hanging out the window and drops the javelin.
You know what?
And it goes right into his
plausible
head.
in this. That could have worked
right
fine.
through the head, yeah.
Or even better, that you realize, and see, this could somewhat factor into the ending. The javelin, the killer knows she can't make it to get him, so she throws it up in the air, arcs it, and it comes down just as he's about to get into his car.
Oh, yeah, showing the skill, the Olympic skill. There you go.
Yeah, so he's trying to open the door, and the javelin comes down, goes through his neck, into the door, and opens the door, and then it swings open on his dead body with him hanging off it. Yeah. So there's lots of ways you could do it. That's what I'm saying is movies like this, you need that imagination. That's one thing that the movie doesn't do properly. I mean, the kills are
that's
fine.
what people want,
Well, it's funny because somebody complimented the kills in this, and I'm like, what are you watching? There's way better stuff than this.
Maybe they complimented it because they're more realistic.
Sure. Why not?
Reality is always more boring in that respect.
I suppose. But that's one thing, and then the other is that the story is just not great. It's an interesting premise that isn't properly executed. Now that's not that part's not surprising for 1984.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, if you'd somehow tied it into the experimental drugs,
that too, they don't really do anything with that.
That would have made it more interesting. Yeah,
right. There's another thing: is maybe she's jealous because the new drugs actually work, and the ones she took when she was there don't, or something.
Or I think what it should have been was that it should be that the drugs they gave her turned her into a man.
Something.
And then she was disqualified.
Well, but you make, and I forgot about it because I was caught up in the other stuff. But that whole plot detail doesn't matter. I mean, literally the only thing it seems to serve is to make the one girl have a stomach cramp, so she takes her to the house so that you hear about the mother, which there were a lot of ways to make that happen that didn't revolve this complicated drug, because there's nothing else. And there is kind of that red herring where she says, well, maybe the drugs are making them disappear. But they don't do anything with that. If you'd had one kid had died from it, you might be, or is in the hospitalized because they found weird drugs in their system, then you might be able to think, oh, maybe it's the drugs. Maybe it's not really, there's a combination thing happening here. But they don't really, and again, this is the part where for 1984, I'm not surprised that the story is weak in that respect, because this is not a movie that was made with a high premise or with a lot of money. The kill thing is less excusable because that's the offset. When the movie's story is, then you offset that by being like, yeah, but then her head got caught in the salad spinner and she got spun out of the damn high school and then her body exploded right over a bunch of kids at a picnic.
Or she gets stuck in the and she's trying to hide in the washing machine and starts to spin and they just stick the javelin in the washer and she just slowly gets like ripped apart by it.
Yeah, people don't talk about Dead Alive and say, "Oh man, you remember that great story about the rat thing?" No, they talk about, "Oh, remember when he grabbed the lawnmower and he was just mowing people down and there was just gallons of ichor flying everywhere?"
Yeah, that line was, "I kick ass for the Lord."
Right. That's what this movie needs to be, is something like that, where if you're not going to give me, like, you don't need to have, it doesn't have to be a 4-part Agatha Christie whodunit on what's going on. But if it's not going to be that, then the kills need to be over.
No, but honestly, if you tied the whole drug thing in, where at the end the doctor gets arrested for the drugs.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then the girl realizes, the girl that lives realizes that there's more to life than being an Olympian champion, and she's not going to end up like the murderer. She knows that there's more to life. Like there's ways you could flesh this out and make it more.
Here's a completely different one that doesn't even involve the transgender angle, where the person didn't transition for this reason, but you find out that the doctor, because the doctor's probably, I would say, early 50s, so he's not a young man. That doctor's not young. The doctor, you find out, had originally tried a version of this drug out on Diane because
exactly,
well,
and the drug caused something.
Yes, and so now she's killing the children and trying to blame it on the drug to make him look bad, so he's disqualified from ever being a head of whatever. There's ways to do it. Yeah, there's ways to do it that weren't this ham-handed. This was this again though, the transgender thing was another thing that popped up a lot. Not only in Italian films, but famously Sleepaway Camp, where at the very end, the girl is actually a boy.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Sleepaway Camp.
So this was another 80s thing where this was kind of a fallback to, oh, shocker, whoever you thought was a this was a this. Da, da, da. And that's it. So, but this one had avenues to not be that simplistic, and it didn't take them. And it also fails on the kill thing. Now, it's still an entertaining movie. So even though, these sound like fatal games, fatal problems, they're not really. I still had a good time with it. I would just say rent it, don't buy it. I'm glad I watched it because I like slashers from this period, and this is an interesting entry because the bad acting is funny, and the premise is at least intriguing, even if it isn't successfully done. So I'm not sorry I watched it, and I would say to anybody who really is into this genre,
this movie probably could have used as well.
Yeah,
Clint Howard as a creepy janitor.
Sure, why not?
Another red herring,
Yeah, he's the one hiding the bodies for Diane because he's secretly in love with her because he's a troll in the basement and she's a pretty woman and he's like hide them from
and then at the end he's like Einhorn is a man.
Yeah, then when the reveal happens, he's like, what? No way. Yeah, they're sure. Like I said, it's not a terrible movie. It's actually a entertaining one-time watch, and that's what I would say is, unless you're really collecting every slasher you can, I would not purchase this. I would rent this for $5 or less, and you will have a good time. Or wait till it hits Tubi or something and watch it for free with ads. And it will be entertaining one time because there are aspects of it that, like I said, the direction is fine to good at times. So it looks and moves very well. The acting between the leads can be hilariously bad. I mean, I could have recorded many clips of the kids talking to each other, and they would probably mostly be funny. And then there is the stuff where when you watch the setup, because of course I breezed through it, but when you see the setups of things, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Because like I said, the mother thing legitimately threw me off because it's right about the midpoint or so of the movie, and this is setting up something potentially different, or I actually thought it was going to be a Psycho ripoff. I was like, oh, they're ripping off now another film. They're going to rip off Psycho, where it's going to be the mother saying, these kids are going to be way better than I was. I want my record to hold. Like, I thought that was another thing I thought of at one point. Oh, we're going to find out that some of these kids are trying to break the mother's record, and she was famous for it. So she's going to be killing her to protect her mother's reputation because she said everybody respected her, and she seems very angry when she says it as if something happened.
Yeah.
So there's all these interesting little things that the movie just doesn't do anything with. And so it is an interesting and entertaining enough film to watch. But is it going to be something that you'll rewatch very often? Unlikely. So, again, not a total failure. One of those movies that's interesting, one that seems to have potential that wasn't capitalized on. But I probably wouldn't buy it without watching it on YouTube or somewhere else first. See if this is something, because even the nude scenes, there's better nudity in other movies. That's not enough to keep this movie floating. I mean, yes, there's nudity and there is that, but it's not exploitation enough for people who are into it just for that. Like, you're just going to see some topless women. You'll see some butts. There's a couple of full frontals. They're not very close up. They're not very interesting. It's nothing you can't find on the internet in better quality and with more variety. So that's not going to be, I think, enough for people. I think this is a movie that in the modern age has to survive on a story or interesting deaths. And both of those are not bad, not terrible, just middle of the road.
Just not done well enough.
Not well enough for it to be a multiple watch, I think, for most people. But I would say, again, I watched it because, and I had read reviews that said don't expect a lot. So I went in with my expectations set dead center. They were met with some interesting moments where I thought they might go a little bit up. They never did, but the fact that those moments exist at all is at itself remarkable, because a lot of movies just go for the bare minimum, and that's fine, but they don't strive for anything past that, and they can still be entertaining, but you don't sit there and go, well, what if you just done 2 or 3 things differently? This might be a very differently remembered movie. This is one of those films where if a couple of things have been different, this might be a movie that is held in higher esteem. So that's the reason to watch it, is to see the potential. And even if it isn't realized, at least it's not a complete waste of your time. It's not terminally boring. It's not inept. It is simply something that never went past the midway point. And that's okay once in a while. Like I said, watch it for free, rent it for cheap. You'll have a couple of good laughs, and you'll experience an interesting movie that, again, is a theme slasher, which itself is kind of a subgenre that I like. Is, okay, we're going to build around a theme, and it technically does, but that's what I mean about it doesn't do enough with it. So, again, not a terrible film, just one you will likely forget in a few years. So, there are worse things. There are movies that are actively terrible and not terrible fun. There are movies that are offensive and mean and cruel and everything else. And this one is just kind of almost as an in-joke to the view of jocks in the 80s. It's almost kind of like, dumb type of thing, but it's fun enough. So that would be my final review on it. And that's all I have for this week, because as usual, even though I thought I didn't have much to say about that movie, we spent a good half an hour to 40 minutes on it. And so at this point, whatever you choose to watch, read, or listen to.
Yeah, we're just too good at talking about shit. That's really what it is.
We really are. We can go on and on about junk. And
it's not all junk.
But I was going to say, but that having said that, go listen to some Idris Elba. Go read the Jurassic League or Snow Crash if you somehow have never read that. Then make that a top end thing. And go look up Rods from God, because it was a real idea.
Man.
And it was nearly as goofy as this film was.
That's going to stay with me, too.
Also unrealized potential, I guess. So we really talked about 2 different things that never got to their potential. So on that note, enjoy your weekend. Keep an eye on the skies, because you never know if rods are going to fall from it. And we'll talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.